Hi, good morning. I'm really honored to be here. I am, by the way, your unprepared speaker because I just got off a plane from Paris. So I did not memorize this. But, and I also don't have slides because after business school, I decided I was never going to do that again unless I'm asking for money. So my name is Catalina Girald, and I'm the CEO and founder of a little lingerie company called Naya. And Naya has a really big mission. So not only did we want to empower women through our lingerie, but what we wanted to do was to change the supply chain. So we are a fully vertically integrated supply chain, and our objective was to create a faster, less wasteful, socially responsible supply chain that was also more environmentally friendly. Before Naya, I was an attorney at a law firm here in New York called Skadden Arps. And I was asked to tell a little bit about my personal story because I hear that a lot of you out there had other careers and want to actually go into entrepreneurship. So in addition to telling you about my company, which we'll get back to, I'll talk a little bit about why, or at least what it feels like to become an entrepreneur. So who in the audience here grew up with a lab or a golden retriever or a dog that loves to play balls? What's your name? Shreya. And what's your dog's name?
I lost him in July, but his name was Red.
I'm sorry, Red. And did Red like tennis balls? How much did he love his tennis ball?
Obsessively so.
How many times do you think you could throw that ball and he would still go catch it? So that's what it feels like to be an entrepreneur. Like, you can throw that ball up a hill, and I'm going to go running after it. You can throw it into a sewer, and I'm going to be like, where's the ball, where's the ball? And that was how we function. Entrepreneurship is not really a rational thing. We do it because we can't help it. Because I'll give you an example back to Skadden. So when I was at Skadden, I got paid a lot. And I had car services, and I probably ate at more expensive restaurants on the company dime than I'll ever eat in my entire lifetime. But I traded that in to get paid nothing, to live in the back of my company warehouse in a fourth-floor walk-up in San Francisco, where I literally had to step over the homeless people in order to get out the door. And I also had to give up my entire social life. So a rational human being would never make that trade. And if you have an offer at Goldman, go now. But in the words of Nietzsche, he who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. And if any of you have read Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, you'll know that he says that life is not primarily a quest for pleasure or for power, but for meaning. And if you do have that drive to be an entrepreneur, that is what it gives us. It gives us meaning. And this is particularly true in the case of social entrepreneurship, where we have this opportunity to create a business that can give back, can give a good return to our investors, but at the same time can change lives. And so I'll tell you a little bit more about Naya. I started it, as I said, to change women's lives and for the supply chain. And if you've heard of us before, you've looked up our website, you'll know about our women's initiatives. So Naya is one of the few, it's probably the only lingerie company, but one of the few garment companies that is fully vertically integrated. We control our supply chain from beginning to end. And about 90% of our workforce is women or single mothers or women heads of household. And we specifically chose to benefit single mothers because these are the women who are most at risk to choose working over, or choose taking care of their children over working. And unfortunately, what that ends up doing is that many of these children get pulled out of school early because they also have to take on a job. And so it ends up leading to more and more poverty and more people not working. And so at Naya, what we do is we have flexible work policies. We pay above market wages. Everybody gets insurance. We have flexible work policies that allow women to take care of their children and more easily balance work. We also pay for their children's education. So all school supplies, all books, all meals are included because we want to make sure that all of our school workers, or that all of our garment workers' children have a right to an education. We run a program called Underwear for Hope, which started because when I started Naya, I was really looking into doing something like a Tom's one-for-one program. But, you know, buy a pair of underwear, give a pair of underwear, that wasn't really going to work. And so as I was interviewing different foundations, I ran into this one in Colombia, which is where we actually have our factory in Colombia, South America. And what they were doing was providing schools for their children. And they told me that the problem that they were having is that a lot of these women, these are schools in the slums. Colombia has a civil war going on, and so in the slums, these are people that have been displaced because of the civil war, or used to be ex-Pablo Escobar cocaine trade type of people. And so they built these schools in the slums, and many of the women don't have fathers or husbands with them. And so what we found is that a lot of the kids that were getting education were being pulled out of school to work. And when I went into the school, I met a little girl who was 9 years old. She was on a computer, or sorry, she was 12. She was working on a project for entrepreneurship, and I asked her, you know, what are you working on? And she had built this candy store with a logo and all these things, and she had done a really good job. And when we walked out, the headmaster said we rescued her from prostitution when she was 9. And apparently, and then she said, do you know who put her into prostitution? I was like, well, no, her mother. And it's because the mothers have 6 other children that they can't feed. And that's the only way that they can think of getting money when they don't have jobs. So through Underwear for Hope, what we do is we employ the women in the slums. And so for every bra that we sell, we give away a lingerie wash bag. And these are made at home by these women with a small sewing machine, which most of them own. And it's a way for them to have employment. And I actually have a video that I wanted to show. I'm not entirely sure how to turn that on, but I was told to say video, and it would come on. That doesn't seem to be working. Oh, here we go.
Which is a neighborhood of Medellin up in the hills. What we wanted to do was, as we grew, we wanted to make sure that we could benefit other people. Through our Underwear for Hope program, Naya is empowering women in the poorest and most violent areas of the world by training them to sew. We then employ them so that they can help themselves and their children.
Me gusta mucho hacer este trabajo para Naya porque no pusieron peros. Nos abrieron las puertas y nos dieron la oportunidad de que yo personalmente estuviera donde estoy en este momento.
To be able to give somebody else a chance, I think for me that's my most rewarding thing.
And so those are our women's programs. I wanted to talk about another part of Naya that we don't talk about a lot because it's something that we're just about to announce. We've been working on using technology in order to basically shorten our supply chain in order to have less of environmental impact. One of the things that we do is we make everything out of recycled plastic bottles. And so, for example, this pair of high-waisted panties is all made, it's actually 86% recycled plastic bottles. And it's very soft. It feels like almost any other material that you would use. And we use this material, but we also use digital printing rather than traditional printing mechanisms in order to achieve this as well as digital printing. Basically, everything we do is digital printing. And what it does is it speeds up our production processes. It doesn't work like 3D printing, but with a digital printer, what we could do is we could input white fabric, and rather than then having a lot of fabric, normally in a production process, you have a long piece of fabric and you cut over it and you have a lot of waste. With digital printing, the pieces come out ready to be sewn. And so it's a much more efficient process, and it reduces the length of our supply chain substantially. So we can make product from beginning to end in about 4 months, where a traditional lingerie company takes 12 to 18 months from beginning to end. The theory is that the shorter the lead times, the closer to just-in-time manufacturing we can get, which means the faster the inventory turns, which means the fewer the items that are created that no one wants to buy. Because what happens is when you have very long lead times, we make lots and lots of product, and it doesn't get sold. And so it's sitting there, and it turns into trash. And most brands burn it and contribute to more waste to the environment. And so with our production processes, we're creating less waste. The other advantage to digital printing is that unlike traditional dyeing and printing processes, no wastewater is generated that goes back into the environment. So let me give you an example in concrete terms. Let's say that Victoria's Secret made 330 million pairs of panties last year. Those 330 million pairs of panties, after dyed or printed, would have consumed 1.6 billion gallons of water. That's enough water to feed drinking water for 4.6 million people for 1 year. And if you had done the digital printing process instead, the amount of water that would have been consumed would have been 0 gallons. So when you're dealing with an industry that's the second largest polluter in the world, anything that you can do on an environmental level is really important, and it's important to us. But one of the things that I'm really proud about is that what we're doing, we're also maintaining 80% gross margins. So we've basically shown that we can have a fully vertically integrated supply chain that makes stuff out of recycled plastic bottles, that use digital printing processes, which are the most expensive in the world, and that have socially responsible practices for their employees, while giving a very good return to investors. And so that's what we do. Thank you so much.